We've all heard the age-old saying, you can't judge a Netflix show by its cover, right? No, that was supposed to be a joke. You can grow now. You can't judge a book by its cover. Even if we believe it's true, though, it's not even that easy to live like it, is it? Even in the literal sense of books. Now, I don't know how many of you still actually go to real bookstores like I do, but if you ever go to a bookstore, you might wander by and see, oh wow, that book. And it's the graphic and the title that catch your attention, as they do for me. And I pick up the book and say, wow, that looks fabulous and nerdy in just the right ways for me. And but I might have actually walked past 100 better books. In our world, which is becoming more and more visually oriented appearance and the cover view of things, it might be hard to get past. Think about it. How much does a person's appearance, how does that affect our first impressions of them? Ask yourself honestly, when you see someone for the first time, how much of your this is that person do you attach to their appearance? Maybe quite a lot. Maybe a whole lot, actually. What a person looks like does tell us usually something about them, though, right? We gotta be fair. It does tell us something about them, their outward appearance. But as we know, a person's outward appearance can hide a whole lot, too. Can't judge a book by its cover. Why is that? Because it's just the cover. It's not the stuff of the heart. It's not the middle. And because we know that things aren't always as they seem, right? The cover doesn't get us to the heart of the book or the story or the Netflix show. It doesn't go deep enough. Do you want to be known, or don't you want to be known? Let me ask you the question. Don't you want to be known as someone for more than just what's on the outside of you? I know I sure do. If we can imagine the day of our funeral, and I realize it's a little bit early in the morning for doing this, but bear with me. Imagine the day of your funeral. We probably don't want to be known as a shallow person at that point. Only known for caring about what was on the exterior of others and ourselves. We want to be known for having depth and substance. But we live in a visual age, no doubt. We can take a selfie. Let me do this with us. No, I won't actually post it. But we can take a selfie and post it on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram with just 2 clicks of a button. We're keenly aware of appearance. We're visual people. In fact, I read a stat this week, and I know that stats don't tell the whole story, of course. I read a stat this week that 30% of physicians, or of plastic surgeons rather, in the US are reporting an increase in inquiries about having work done. And get this, because of people's social media and selfie posts. 30% of surgeons are seeing an increase in inquiries just about social media posts when they ask. Does that surprise you? Me neither. As people take more and more pictures and we're able to make them public in a way that has never been done in history before, it makes sense that there would be a growing self-consciousness related to appearance. But here's the thing. Judging a book by its cover is not a new thing. We're looking at a text from the Bible today that's around 3,000 years old, and the same focus on looking at the surface rather than the things of the heart lies front and center. Thankfully, this text shows us that things are not always as they first appear. And thankfully, this text also tells us that God cares about the things of the heart. He cares deeply about the heart of things. Let's just take a moment and pray as we prepare our hearts to hear from Him this morning. God, we thank you that you inspired this text to be written in just the way it's written, that we might come to know you more deeply, know ourselves more deeply, and be transformed as we experience your presence, even as we think and read and pray this morning. Come and speak to us now, Lord God. Amen. So we're working through the whole storyline of the Bible this year, and we've seen that God creates the world to be the space where He dwells with humans, to be the place where we would have an intimate relationship with Him, and then from out of that relationship would flow our relationship with other people, with our own selves, and with the rest of nature. But we also see that these first people that God creates walk away from the fullness of life that God promised. They chose to be their own masters, to be the own kings of their lives. They reject God's loving leadership. And this breaks down the relationship that they have with God, and it begins to unravel all the other relationships as well, with other people, with their own selves, and with the rest of the created order. It's not a wonder that the world is as messed up as it is. That's what happens when people live self-centeredly, with self as center, self as master. That's what happens when I live self-centeredly. This is what the Bible calls sin. It's life apart from God and His ways. But here's the thing we see as the Bible unfolds. God doesn't give up on us. The whole Bible, in fact, is a story of God's continuing pursuit of humanity. How He pursues us to bring us back to Himself, to restore things to how they were always meant to be. Now, up to this point in the story, as we're reading through, we see that God's way, his mode of getting us back is actually through relationship. So He calls a people to Himself, the people of Israel, the Jewish nation. And after He rescues this group of people that's grown into a great nation in Egypt, He brings them into the land of promise. But it's not long that they've been there that they actually, again, reject God as their king. They say, we don't want you to lead us, God. We want a king like everyone else, a real king, a king we can see, just like all the nations around us. And so God, He accommodates Himself to their request. Now, that's where we pick up our story this morning. See, there was a guy that we saw last week, King Saul. He was chosen as king. And we read this about him. It says, he was as handsome a young man as could be found anywhere in Israel, and he was a head taller than anyone else. He looked the part. See, to be a king in the ancient world had everything to do with, can you lead an army into battle and be victorious? Saul, in his appearance, could command an army and command respect. The problem was, though, well, it was a problem of his heart. See, although he starts off well, Saul quickly becomes proud. He wanted to look good in the eyes of others. He cared more deeply about what people thought of him and the respect of others than he thought about what God thought of him and obeying God. And so God essentially says to him, because, Saul, you've rejected my leadership, I'm going to remove your leadership. I'll find someone else, someone who has a heart that seeks after my heart. You see, God cares about character. He cares about the inward stuff. So today we pick up in 1 Samuel 16 and 17. Now, this part of the story starts with the prophet Samuel. Samuel is the guy who first anoints or sort of ushers in Saul as king. And Samuel is bummed out. He doesn't, it's all gone wrong, and he's upset, he's depressed. But here's what God says to him. He says, time to stop mourning. I've got a job for you. Go to Bethlehem. I've chosen a king from there, one of the sons of Jesse. So as he arrives in Bethlehem, he sees these 7 guys, and there's some good candidates there. And in fact, his eye is drawn especially to the eldest brother. 1 Samuel 16:6 says, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, oh, surely, that's the guy. That's the Lord's anointed, or the chosen king. Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. First impressions. The book cover evaluation. Samuel is impressed by what he sees. Eliab, the oldest of Jesse's sons, well, he looks the king. Tall, built, yeah, he must be the one. When Samuel looks for a king, he's concerned about the outward appearance. But look what God says to him. Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I've rejected him. He gets the, hey, thanks for applying, the door's that way. See, the problem for Samuel is that he makes his evaluation the same way we often do, on the outward stuff. But that's not really counts in the end. Here's a picture from me rock climbing this summer. Good, it's good. Yeah, thanks for that laugh. Come on, you don't believe me? I'll undo my shirt and show you. No, my wife howls when I showed her that. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been rock climbing before. It doesn't matter if you have or not. I have a few times. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how strong the person is who's belaying on the other end. They don't have to be big, but they do have to know what they're doing. See, I don't want somebody on the other end. It doesn't matter to me if they've got all the fanciest kind of gear on, if they have a Subaru covered in MEC and black diamond stickers. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is, do they know how to belay, and are they paying attention? That's what I want at the end of the rope. If they're concerned only about how cool they look, but don't have any experience or attention, I'm not going to trust them. See, what really counts when it comes down to it is not just how things appear on the outside. It's got to go deeper. So Samuel's looking at the outward appearance of Eliab, and he's impressed, but look what God says to him. It says, the Lord does not look at the things that people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Notice, though, God's not surprised about how we judge. He's not surprised that we judge the book by its cover. He says, yeah, I know that you humans function like that. Not me. Thankfully, God doesn't. He looks deeper. When it comes to choosing a king, he needs someone with character, with a heart tuned into God's own heart. What exactly does that mean? Now, when we hear the word heart, we often think it's the place of our feelings, or sort of our emotional center, right? Now, if you've ever been reluctantly duped into watching The Bachelor or Bachelorette, you may have heard a statement, something like this: I just have to follow my heart as they choose this future mate, potentially. Which means, of course, I just need to follow my feelings and emotions. Or probably it's more like this: I just need to follow my hormones. But in the Bible, heart doesn't mean emotional center. It's decision-making center. The word lavav in Hebrew could easily be translated mind rather than heart, because it's not about your feelings. That's not what your heart is in the Bible. Heart means, how do I make my choices? What direction am I setting my life in? Heart really has to do with the stuff of our character, the place where we make choices about how we're going to live day by day. Yeah, maybe you've heard that phrase as well. Your character is who you are when no one's watching. What do you think of that? Your character is who you are when no one's watching. I think that's true. I think it's true. How you behave, how you think, what you do. But I think it's incomplete as well. Because your character is who you are when people are watching as well. Your character comes out in how you treat other people, how you speak to them, if you can keep a secret or not, if you're kind or if you're harsh, if you're generally self-absorbed or generally generous. See, our character, a better definition I think is this: the sum total of all of our habits, good and bad. Roll them up together, that's your character. That's the stuff where you make your decisions about how to live and where you're going in life. This is the hard stuff God is speaking to Samuel about. The problem for Samuel, and for us often, is he's too concerned about the wrong kinds of things. What the king looks like. And rather, he's not concerned enough about the right sort of things. The heart of the matter really is the heart. So who's chosen king? All of Jesse's 7 sons are brought out, and they all look great, okay? So Eliab, no. The next son, no. All the way through. 7 sons brought in front of him, all of them, no. So Samuel looks at Jesse and says, so are there any more? And Jesse was like, well, I mean, there's the kid, right? There's David. He's tending sheep. He wasn't even a candidate. He wasn't even in the running for this contest. And Samuel says, okay, we'll wait. And so they do. And they bring David in front, and God says to Samuel, this is the one. And so he pours oil over his head, which is a symbol that he has been chosen to be the next king, right there in front of all his older brothers, his bigger brothers, his strong, big, king-like brothers. So what makes David king material? We begin to see his heart, the stuff of the inside, really come out in the next scene. See, the shepherd boy is tending sheep, but his dad sends him to bring some cheese to the general, of course. What else would you bring to the general? Bring some cheese and see how your brothers are doing on the battlefield. So he goes, and he brings the cheese, and he also goes and sees his brother. And when he's there, he hears this taunt. This guy on the opposing army, the Philistine army, is saying all these kinds of things. And he's challenging someone to a one-on-one match. It was a common way in the ancient world to settle kind of a battle dispute without massive loss of life. So one challenger invites another to come, and then you one-on-one combat. But this guy, every time he comes out, and yells over to the people of Israel. The soldiers cower in fear. Some of you know this story, right? This guy's a giant. He's massive. The text, again, focuses on appearance. It says he's over 9 feet tall, a true giant. And then it talks about his battle gear, and it goes into detail there. It says that just the tip of his spear weighs 15 pounds alone. Imagine a 15-pound weight, bang that into a spearhead. We're talking, this sucker's huge. That's just the tip of his spear. So he's big, his battle gear is impressive. But when David hears the taunt, he doesn't cower in fear. This is what he says, "Who is this Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" He's not scared. So David tells the present king, Saul, that he wants to go to battle with this giant. You got to remember, this is a shepherd boy. He's in his teens. He's tiny. Maybe he's really tough. I don't know. But he's a boy. And he's got his staff and a sling against this warrior giant. Classic underdog story, right? I don't think so. David sure doesn't see it as an underdog story. He's filled with confidence that he can beat this guy. Why? How? Well, the battle looks completely lopsided to everyone else. But because of David's deep trust and his connection with God, David is sure that God will give him the victory. So David readies his sling. He has 5 smooth stones in his pouch. And he begins to rush toward the giant. But when the giant sees him, and that he's just a boy, he's not dressed for battle, he's dressed for tending sheep. He's offended. "Am I a dog," he said, "that you would come at me with sticks?" Goliath, it seems, is hung up on appearances as well. It's like you're getting ready for a game, on the soccer pitch or the baseball diamond or lacing up your skates to hit the ice. And you're on the ice, and then out come the team, and it's this scrawny bunch of kids. You're like, really? Is this a joke? This is insulting, right? If you had just a bunch of kids show up one time we were in Mexico building homes. I was in my late teens, and so I was sort of the size I am now. And maybe a little bit lighter. And there was these kids on the soccer pitch. This is in the evening, and they invited us to come play soccer with them. We're like, "Oh, that's so cute," because these guys were like this big, right? "Yeah, we'll come play some soccer with you." And they schooled us. They made us look like fools. They took us to the vet that day. As hard as we tried. They weren't the underdogs. They weren't the underdogs, though appearances might have made you think that. So Goliath, he's offended that Israel sends him this kid to fight. And so he taunts David. He says, "Come here. I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." And look what David says in response. And my wife said this sounds like the Braveheart scene, but I can't do a Scottish accent. Otherwise I would try. He says this, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." To Goliath, this is a battle about weapons and military might, but David sees it differently. It isn't sword and spear versus stick and sling. That's what we see from a human perspective, but no, that's not the real dynamic of this battle, and David knows it. David sees a bigger picture. God will fight this one. So Goliath taunts, "I'll feed your flesh to the birds and the animals," but look how David turns this around. Now, I'm not sure, but this might be the first record of trash talk in antiquity. I don't know. He says this very day, he shouts up at the giant, "I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army," not just yours, Goliath, the whole army. "I will give their carcasses to the beasts of the field." That's talking trash, if I've ever heard it. But is it arrogance? Well, no. Because here's the real point. When David wins this victory, and he's confident that he will, when the enemy is defeated, David says this, "Then the whole world will know there's a God in Israel. All those gathered will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." Notice what David doesn't say. He doesn't say, "When I feed you to the birds, everyone will know that I'm a courageous warrior. Everyone will honor me. Everyone will give me praise." He does the exact opposite. David's character, the stuff of his heart, is humility. That doesn't mean backing down from a challenge or backing off when he's called to do great things. It means the opposite, actually. But it's not about making it about himself. See, humility isn't thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It's the opposite of self-absorption or self-centeredness. It's other-centeredness. That's what humility is. Was David brave? You bet. Was he skilled? Yes, he was. He was well-trained with his sling. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to use it, but he knew this. It was with God's help, he'd killed a lion and a bear defending his dad's sheep. And with God's help, this guy wouldn't be a challenge either. Here's the thing about David. His bravery, it wasn't bravado. It wasn't puffing up his chest to make himself look bigger than he really was. No, his bravery wasn't bravado because his goal wasn't his own glory. He knew that whatever skill he had was a gift from God. And it was God who made him able to win the victory. Because he knew it was God who was behind his success. He could just give the glory back to God. He knew that God was the one who deserved all the honor. Notice this too. David had the ability to see past Goliath's appearance. He didn't let it stop him from going forward. And he does that because of his deep trust in the God who saves not by spear or sword. So what about us? This story challenges us, I think, to see things differently. It tells us that we need to think differently about other people, to adopt God's way of seeing, one not based on appearance or outward cover of the book, Judgments. And this is also true, I think, particularly true when it comes to the way we view ourselves. What matters most, really, about who you are? Is it your status in the eyes of others? The amount of trophies or accolades on the wall? The degrees that are in your office? Maybe for gals, it's the gaze of men, or the envy of other women because of how you look. For guys, maybe it's a sense of superiority from being bigger or more built than others. Being seen as particularly generous or good, being seen as a good person, maybe that's the most important thing to you. Or is it the position or the title of your job? See, when we talk about outward appearance, we're not just talking about what we physically look like. It's all those things that we would use to judge people as being either above us or below us, and as being more or less valuable or capable. God's words to Samuel, humans look at the outward appearance. God looks at the heart. From these words, it lays bare often the way that we make judgments, our value systems. And it tells us that as humans, our value systems are often misguided. The old saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. We might agree in principle, but to actually live that way, that's a different story. When we're honest, we think, yeah, we probably shouldn't judge a book by its cover. It'll never be accurate. But we do. We do judge others on their appearance, on the outward stuff. Seems that everyone does. So, and this is too often our conclusion, so I better work harder so that I can have a great cover. Better work on making sure people see, better work on making sure that what people see puts me a bit higher in your books. But do you see what this does? This turns my motivating factor, the stuff of my heart, my decision-making, it turns it in on myself. It turns the direction of my heart inward. It turns my focus onto having a great cover. Basically, I keep playing the appearance game. So our focus on the outward can take over if we allow the outward stuff to become what defines our identity, what makes us, us. Be it the focus on physical beauty or power, on the ability to make money or intellectual achievement, on the things that I own, or being seen as a mom who's got everything put together and I never struggle to raise my kids. Why do we feel drawn to focus on the outward factor? Here's why I think it is. I think it's because we want to be known. We want to know if we're worth something. We want to know if we're a winner, if we deserve love or attention or respect. We want to know if we're a somebody. In the movie Rocky, the main character, Rocky Balboa, the Italian stallion, he has this girlfriend, Adrian. You might remember the scene where he's yelling for her, right? Classic. Adrian! Go watch the movie, it's great. Adrian! He's trying to find her in the big crowd of people. Anyways, there's this scene where she asks him why it's so important that he works so hard to prove himself. Why he has to use her word, go the distance. He replies, then I'll know I'm not a bum. See, Rocky has to justify his existence, he thinks. Either he performs or he's a nobody, a bum. Maybe we're not that different than Rocky. Maybe we're seeking to prove that we have value and have worth. Maybe we're seeking to have something that we can say, we can show for ourselves. The problem is that whatever we're living for, that thing we look to for our sense of value, it'll control our lives. Whatever that thing is for you. It was true for Rocky, it's true for you and I. The question is, what will I build my life on? What will give me the sense of significance and validation that ultimately I'm seeking? This is the heart stuff. Here's the good news. God, the one who sees the heart, he's also the one that gives our hearts what they ultimately long for. He gives us that sense of value and significance and fulfillment that we desperately seek. That's what we see in David, I think. Here's a heart that recognizes his worth before God. He knows that God is with him. And he lets God and God's love for him define his life. That's the kind of relationship with God we were made for. See, here's the crazy thing. God himself comes to demonstrate how deeply that love goes. See, the story of the Bible unfolds. We find that there is another king. He's born into King David's family. And again, it's Bethlehem is the place where this king will come from. The story that we celebrate at Christmas. That the baby who was born in the stable to a dirt poor family is the true king of the universe. God himself becomes a human person in Jesus. And in the most incredible act of humility the world has ever seen, God in Jesus gives up his life for you and for me. But see, the real pain doesn't come from the nails. The pain comes from taking the guilt and shame that my sins have brought about and bearing it in his own body on the cross so that he could take my sin and his perfect record and exchange them. That I could be seen before God as completely sinless, guiltless, free, able to be in right relationship with God, others, my own self, and the rest of the world. But that's not the end of the story. God the Father, as we celebrated Easter, raised him back to life. Yes, I know it sounds crazy. We know. But we believe that the living God is able to do the impossible. That Jesus is still alive today. His life after death guarantees mine too. Guarantees life after death, life with God forever in his presence to anyone who would put their trust in Jesus and what he's accomplished for us. To put his trust in the humble king who gave everything to buy us back himself. If I ever want to know how much I'm worth, I just look at the cross. We sang about that this morning. That's how I know what I'm worth. That God would value me like that. To give up his own life in my place. Let me introduce you to someone who's found this new life. Who's learned to see his life from this new perspective. Pitcher for the LA Dodgers. The Cy Young winner, which is the best pitcher in the league. And just recently named the 2014 National League MVP. Let me introduce you to Clayton Kershaw, and he'll tell you more about himself.
When you're out there in the heat of the moment and you're pitching, it's a big situation. You're saying, don't throw a ball, don't give up a hit, don't walk this guy. The harder you want to control something, the more it gets out of your control. And you want to hit the outside corner of the pitch. If all you think about is, I'm going to hit that, aim it right there, hit it right there, that's the last place it's going to go. But when you have in the back of your mind where you're supposed to throw it, and then just say, I'm going to throw it as hard as I can right at that glove, and just say that, it'll be around there more often than not. If you've done the preparation and the mechanics and everything is there. It's almost the same in life. It's like the more you try and grip control your life, the more God's gonna, untangle that from you. He's gonna make things go to where you have to rely on Him. I was just so worried. I was so worried all the time. My parents got divorced when I was 10. I had so much anxiety about my own life. If there was something that needed to get done, I'd rather do it myself than let other people do it for me. Just stuff that I couldn't control, that I was worried about. My mom and I were trying to figure out how college was going to be a feasible option for us. It's going to be so expensive, I can't afford to do that. I didn't know what to do on my own. When I kind of relinquished all control of my life was the day I got drafted. That was life-changing. That was something that, even talking about it now chokes me up just because it's just amazing the providence God had in my life. God was there the whole time. I just didn't bother to look. I never thought in a million years I'd ever get to play professional baseball, get to play in the major leagues, get to live out my dream. Since I was a kid, it's all I ever wanted to do. But, at the same time, if you're playing baseball, why are you playing baseball? Is it to have good success on the field and be a Hall of Famer or whatever it is? Sure, that's everybody's goal. But then what? For me, it's about the legacy you leave off the field. It's about how many people can I affect through the platform that He gave me. I got to go to Africa last year with my wife, Ellen. She's been working with some kids over there that she's gotten to go back and see. One particularly has touched her heart, and her name is Hope. And she's a double orphan. Both her parents had died from AIDS. You see the cloud in her eyes, she's scared. Ellen just gave the quickest version of the good news that she possibly could. And that's all it takes for people in Zambia. It's like they've been waiting their whole lives for somebody just to tell them. And that had changed my life. We just started a home called Hope's Home, and in honor of Hope, this little girl. And it's going to be an orphanage for about 12 kids, and we just bought the land for it. And hopefully within the next year, we'll see the orphanage built, and we'll see the kids put in the home. We're just an avenue, we're just doing the part that God gave us. You can't think, oh yeah, we can change this whole country ourselves. No, but God can. And one more reason to let go of control. Playing for the Dodgers in LA is just saying that. It's amazing. It's ridiculous. The prayer I say before I go out there and pitch is, not God, let me win today, or God, help me pitch good. It's, God, just be with me. With all the different people and different cultures and different religions, you can kind of just become one with the crowd. You gotta keep reminding yourself that you're supposed to stand out, and you're supposed to be different, and you're supposed to act boldly in your faith. It's definitely not easy. Not a great conversation starter sometimes, but it's worth the fight. Whether it be pitching on a baseball mound or living my life outside of the baseball field, it's giving up my life to God that really puts my life in control. Clayton Kershaw, and I am singing.
What's Clayton all about? It's about the hard stuff. He's learned to find his identity and worth in what God has said about him. And then he lives out of that place. And look at the effect it's had in him. He can simply and confidently enjoy playing ball. He doesn't have to prove himself. He knows that God is with him. He doesn't need to worry about controlling the outcome. In the game, he can just relax and pitch. And that's how he says he lives his life too. Not trying to control it. He can relax and live as God is calling him to. Not a life focused on himself, but on others. I just watched the ESPN interview with him. He just won the MVP award this year, obviously. And the guy asked him, what does that mean to you? He said, well, MVP means a lot of things to different people, but here's what it means to me. It's really my team, and it's really my coach. And he just gives the glory. He doesn't draw it back to himself. He's able to just simply be a regular dude who brings glory to God in whatever he does. That's why he can say, I'm second. I'm no longer first in my life. I don't have to live like that. Jesus is first. That's the life God's calling you and me to. A life defined by the God who loves you so deeply. That God who loved Clayton so deeply, who loved me so deeply, that he would give up his life on the cross so that I could simply know that God is with me. And he really is. I invite the worship team to come forward, and they're going to close the service with one song, and I just want to invite you to pray with me as they come.